Will artificial intelligence and machines impact your Social Security payment? It certainly seems that way. That's exactly what we're going to discuss today. There is already a projection from the Social Security Trustees showing that within 81 payments, everyone's benefit could be reduced by 23%. So if you are currently receiving $1,000, you could lose $230. If you are receiving $2,000, you could lose $460. That's not coming from me. That information is from a Social Security Trustees report. These are the individuals responsible for calculating how much exists in the trust fund, how much money comes in each year through FICA taxes, and how much is paid out. So essentially, what we're discussing here is that there is a trust fund and it is being depleted. No one can really deny that. However, Social Security itself will still exist for hundreds and hundreds of years into the future unless it becomes privatized and handed over to Wall Street, and no one can predict what would happen then. But as long as that doesn't occur, it will remain for many generations. The issue is that once the trust fund is exhausted, the extra funds currently filling the gaps will disappear, leaving only what current workers are paying into the system. So essentially, your benefit, whether it's you, your parents, your grandparents, or your neighbors receiving a Social Security payment this year, about 91%, maybe slightly less, comes from people who are currently working. These numbers are based on last year's calculations. The updated figures for this year have not been released yet, likely coming within the next month or so. But roughly 9 to 12% of every Social Security payment for anyone receiving benefits comes from the trust fund. That money was set aside by baby boomers starting in the 1980s to prepare for their retirement years, and they are now beginning to retire. Around 12,000 people turn 65 every single day. Those individuals receiving payments get about 91% of their benefits from people currently working. The person down the street, someone working at a restaurant, someone at a barbershop, wherever they may be employed right now. About 91% of your benefit comes from those workers. The remaining 9% comes from the trust fund, which is essentially savings. And what will happen is this. Again, these are last year's figures. About 9% came from the trust fund last year. This year, it will likely increase to around 12%. Then next year, about 14%. Then around 15%, and eventually, within 81 payments, we're looking at the year 2033, where approximately 23% of your Social Security benefit will depend on the trust fund. And then what happens? The trust fund becomes empty, and there is no longer any money available to cover that 23% shortfall. So the real issue is, okay, we need to deal with this. That's the first step. We have to address it. But we're also going to listen to Bernie Sanders discussing artificial intelligence, the workforce, robotics, and everything related. Because here's the problem. If 91% of your income depends on people who are currently working, and those workers are gradually being replaced by AI and machines, then where will that 91% come from? Machines and AI systems do not contribute. Individuals earning over $184,500 do not contribute either. So people like Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Bezos, and others, they might pay into Social Security briefly at the beginning of the year, but after that, they stop contributing the way regular workers do all year long because there is a cap at $184,500. Anything above that amount is not subject to Social Security taxes. They do still pay Medicare taxes since there is no cap there, but that's based on wages, and many of these individuals do not rely on traditional wages. So they may not be contributing much to Social Security or Medicare at all. So let's go ahead and take a look at Bernie Sanders and hear what he has to say about what we're discussing. Transformational, this is absolutely a transformational moment in American history. And this is also a live Q&A session. So once we finish this short segment, I will go ahead and answer your questions. I see questions about retirement, disability benefits, survivor benefits, and spousal benefits. I will answer as many as I can within the next hour. In the United States, not just American workers, but the entire world, very few people disagree that artificial intelligence and robotics are among the most significant and transformative technologies in human history. This is not like the Industrial Revolution. This is something that will move much faster, have far greater impact, and will touch the lives of every man, woman, and child in this country across many different areas. It will affect mental health. It will affect privacy. There's also a kind of historical perspective here. One idea about how humans, especially in the West, gained rights is that after events like the Black Death, when populations were drastically reduced, labor became scarce. Before that, there were so many people that workers had little value. But after the plague reduced the population, employers needed workers and had to treat them better. That's how many rights began to develop. But now, with AI and robotics, the concern is the opposite. Companies may not need workers anymore, so they don't have to treat people better. They may not need us at all. This could impact foreign policy, warfare, and there are scientists who are deeply concerned that if AI becomes more intelligent than humans and operates independently, the consequences could be severe. But today, we're focusing on economics, which is something that isn't discussed enough. Experts are saying that AI and robotics will have a major impact on every worker. About a month ago, I was in San Francisco, and I rode in a driverless vehicle. You all know what that is. It's a car without a driver. It worked quite well. These driverless vehicles are everywhere in San Francisco and are expanding across the country, along with other autonomous vehicle companies. Right now, in Texas, there are 18-wheel trucks operating on the roads. Experts say that without a response, millions of truck drivers, bus drivers, and taxi drivers could lose their jobs within the next decade. My father drove an 18-wheeler his entire life, and that's how our family was supported. So this is something personal. That's going to be very difficult, but it's not limited to transportation. Recently, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest individuals in the world, announced plans to raise $100 billion to automate factories across the United States and globally. After already replacing hundreds of thousands of workers at Amazon with machines, he now wants to expand that to factories everywhere. What does that mean? It means that within 10 years, traditional manufacturing jobs may no longer exist, and warehouse jobs may disappear as well. And it's not just blue-collar workers, truck drivers, taxi drivers, factory workers. It's also white-collar workers. Elon Musk is transforming Tesla into a robotics company with the goal of producing millions of robots annually. Meanwhile, leadership in Microsoft's AI division has suggested that many white-collar roles could be automated within 12 to 18 months. These include lawyers, accountants, administrators, programmers, engineers, teachers, and even healthcare professionals. So we are looking at massive changes across both blue-collar and white-collar jobs. And the reality is that the people pushing these technologies are the wealthiest individuals in the world: Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos, Ellison, and others. Their goal is to replace human labor. Why? Because if a robot costs $20,000 or $30,000 and can work 24 hours a day without a salary, vacation, or sick days, it becomes an incredibly profitable investment. Labor costs can be reduced dramatically, so the question becomes, why hire people at all? The issue we're facing today is that many people still believe in the value of human workers, and most Americans feel the same way. According to recent polls, 79% of voters are concerned that there is no government plan to protect workers from job losses due to AI. About 56% are worried about losing their job or having someone in their family lose their job within the next year. Additionally, most Americans do not trust the intentions of those leading AI development, and for good reason. We've heard similar promises before. The ruling class once promoted free trade as something that would benefit American workers, promising new opportunities and access to global markets. But that didn't happen. Instead, many factories shut down and moved overseas for cheaper labor. Now, similar assurances are being made about AI, but people are skeptical. So the real question is what happens next. There are discussions about slowing down AI expansion to allow time for planning and preparation. The goal is to ensure that technology benefits society instead of just increasing wealth for a small group of individuals. That's the main focus of today's discussion. And yes, there will be criticism, with some claiming that this approach is anti-technology. But the real goal is to make technology serve people, not replace them. If jobs are lost, then ideas like universal basic income may need to be considered so people can still afford housing, food, and healthcare. Now, I'm going to continue with more of this, but I also have several questions I want to answer. One question here: married, age 62, previously married for 26 years, now divorced, not currently married, has a pension, a full-time job, and a 401k. Should they start Social Security now and switch to part-time work? Honestly, that decision is entirely up to you. I actually made a video recently going over the key questions you should ask yourself when considering starting your Social Security benefits. If you are working part-time and earning under $24,480, then you can collect Social Security without any withholding. If you file at age 62, your benefits will be reduced by about 30% because you are claiming early, and that reduction lasts for life. There are options available. I'll include links to guides I mentioned in my previous video. I'll place them in the description after this video. These will include information about divorce benefits, spousal benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, and early filing decisions. They are all free resources. Now here's another question about an overpayment of $53,000. The individual paid $12,000 during a period of illness and took a 4-month break from work. An expedited reinstatement reset the balance back to $53,000. What should they do? This is likely related to disability benefits. In my experience, situations like this are almost always connected to disability payments. Typically, this happens when someone receives SSDI but continues working, and Social Security later determines they were not eligible during that time. There are rules like trial work periods and substantial gainful activity that make this complicated, and many people misunderstand them. That's why I have a guide on this topic. If your benefits were terminated due to work and you applied for expedited reinstatement within 5 years, it means you are claiming that your condition still prevents you from working. The first thing I would recommend is to verify the calculations. You should file an SSA 561 request for reconsideration to make sure the overpayment amount is accurate. Errors can happen, especially now with limited staffing. Before negotiating repayment, confirm whether the amount is correct. Once you receive a response, you can explore options to waive the overpayment. To qualify for a waiver, it must not be your fault. But in many cases, Social Security argues that you were working beyond allowed limits. If there is evidence that the reported earnings are incorrect or belong to someone else, then that should be corrected. You can remove those earnings if they are not yours. So,